Well, hello there. This is YouTuber Alex, Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. Recently, I had an awful losing streak. Just losing game after game, 100 points of ELO, probably 9 or 10 games in a row. Now, this was at the end of the day. I was on a day of holidays. We just had done some fishing in Manly. I was in a pub, in a bar in Manly, just playing on my Chessnut GO. And maybe it was, a couple of beers, a dim lighting. Chessnut GO does have quite small pieces, and at times I mistook my my bishops for pawns. I just did really bad. Just hanging pieces all over the place. Eventually won a game, but it was very unsatisfying. Now the next day, I managed to get these 2 games where I won, really nice wins, and it just boosted my confidence again. Let's go take a look. I had the white pieces in the first game against a Vietnamese friend, and I managed to get the giraffe attack, one of my favorite openings. So that starts off with the Vienna, e4, e5, knight c3. And my opponent seemed to like playing a bishop's opening type maneuvers. So bishop to c5, this is Anderson defense in the Vienna game. And here I love playing the giraffe attack. Queen to g4. It's just a really fun opening, somewhat suboptimal technically, but if you look at the Lichess community database, it's one of the best winning lines for white. Substantial win ratio for white. Interesting thing is that the giraffe attack was named by Eric Schiller in his compendium of unorthodox chess openings. And he notes that in this position, white's queen, it's sticking their head out because the queen can't actually capture the g7 pawn, can't capture it safely, even though it looks like maybe you can. And he notes a game, and it's one of the earliest games in the database, not the earliest, but one of the earliest games in the database where this was captured, where this was played in competition. And the person with the black pieces in this game was future world chess champion Anatoly Karpov. It was played in 1968 in a Soviet chess championship. So Karpov completely crushed their opponent, and it kind of demonstrates what happened. So Karpov played the knight, which is the best move, and then after queen captures, rook here, basically the queen and white is in some trouble. So the queen cannot in fact capture the g7 pawn right away. Have a look at the article attached to this video. Link is in the description. It includes a link to the game where Karpov played black. It's quite an interesting game, and it kind of shows why the giraffe does have its problems. Now in this game, however, black played the single most common response. They see this threat, and so the most common response is queen to f6. Technically kind of okay, not the most accurate move, but still 0-0-0. Very direct attack, of course, threatening a scholar's mate type attack. It's a real threat. However, for white, very easy to deflect, knight to f3. Now, my opponent with the black pieces seemed to enjoy playing some aggressive attacking moves, and that's kind of the case. Whenever people sort of play these bishop opening type maneuvers, usually they enjoy attacks, and so they decide to play knight to h6 immediately with an attack on the queen. However, this is also a mistake because very simply, we can just move our queen to the parking square in the giraffe attack positions, which is queen to g3. Here, white now has a really powerful attack with the queen's knight to d5. It's a very, very thematic attack in the Vienna, and particularly when the queen is on f6. There's a fork of the queen and also of the c7 square, which of course comes with an absolute fork. So the next move by black, they really need to play c6 is one of their only good moves to defend that square. That is not so obvious though, unless you already know the position. And so they didn't. They played just a very standard looking developing move. Seems to make a lot of sense, but now knight d5, bang, hits the queen, hits c7, and fundamentally, black can't defend both the G pawn and the C pawn simultaneously with a single queen move. They have to move the queen, clearly, but if they move the queen back here, we can just straight up take. Best move here for black is probably to try to trade queens. After trading queens, we do win a rook, though it can be tricky because after king goes to this square, our knight is potentially trapped in the corner, and this is an active knight. So that's the best move for black. Black now thought for quite a while, a little bit over, almost 1.5 minutes, and finally they blundered position. They spent quite a long time, defends neither this square or this square, but even worse, we now have knight captures the c7 pawn, family fork.
Emotional damage!
Emotional damage, and here black opted to resign. However, they weren't satisfied with this game, so immediately offered a rematch, of which I agreed to. So usually, in these sort of games, if someone does ask for a rematch, I will play them, be a good sport. So this time, I had the black pieces, they had white, and just like last time, they lead with the bishop's opening. e4, e5, bishop to c4. Bishop's opening, potentially very, very tricky. So what I usually do is to try to play in a way that takes away some of the tricks and traps that white has. So knight c6, so basically inviting white to just transition to transpose back to an Italian, which is in fact their best move. They do that, and so 2 knights defense. That's usually the thing I play, very solid. And here, white, I think, played very quickly, so they must have been expecting this. They decided to play a d4, the open Italian. So a very combative, very good opening, actually, for white. And this transitions to something that's very, very much like the Scotch game. So captures, and here, in fact, it does transpose to the Du Bois-Reity defense against the Scotch gambit. However, white needs to push e5. If you got to this position through the Scotch gambit, you would probably know this, but because we went bishop's opening, Italian, open Italian, and now to this, I didn't think they knew the best move. And so they captured here, which is inaccurate. Best move for me now is actually, according to the engine, is just a take. However, I don't really like that because this fully opens the e file, and white still has a good going attack into my position, potentially. And so I didn't want to open the e file. And so in this position, I typically play a bishop to c5, immediately potentially putting pressure on their weak f pawn. So Stockfish doesn't like this, calls it a bit inaccurate, still 0-0-0 basically, but I think this works out quite well, setting up some tactical resources for the future, and as long as you have a plan, it often works out. Let's see what happens. All right, they capture, we capture in this direction, capture towards the center, they develop, that's fine, open up that diagonal for my bishop, and they now short castle, and here, logically, I should short castle as well. However, I'm going to take the attack to white. So after they traded off their knight, basically their attack kind of finished. So here, I'm now going to push the knight. What are they going to do? They play a slowish move. Okay, so I'm now going to double down on attack, not castled. By not castling, it gives me that extra turn, effectively. Queen to h4, very, very aggressive now. Immediate checkmate threat, and there are now 3 attackers on the f2 pawn. Technically, it's fine, because white does have 3 defenders of that pawn. 1, 2, 3. Well, let's see what happens. All right, so here, as expected, they decided to push their h-pawn, trying to threaten my knight. The best move in this position, which is not so clear, so in this position, it's technically completely fine for white, but they had to find the right move, which was bishop to f4 to defend the h h2 square. In fact, you probably want to move the bishop all the way to h2. It's not the most intuitive or obvious move. This is very, very natural. In fact, this is the second best move in the previous position, but it's a mistake. And it's a mistake because I haven't castled. I now have a fishing pole type attack, fishing pole tactic, h5, potentially sacrificing the knight, and the chess.com analytic engine called this a brilliant move. Simply, white cannot capture because if they capture, I capture back, fully open h-file, and the discovered battery, rook-queen battery on the h-file, it's practically checkmate. So this knight is actually immortal. So what are they going to do? Okay, so they decide to move their bishop. You can see that wasn't the best move because here I think I can actually take in this position. So the best move according to the engine looks something like this. So capture. If they now capture something like this, I can now take because that rook is pinned to the king and I basically win a piece. So that's, well, win a pawn. So that's a mistake. However, here, I think what they were trying to do was trying to add some defense, you know, try to maybe threaten some of my pieces. So here, push forward, a g5, and this is speculative move. You can see it's not the most accurate move. Most accurate move was just to take, but what are they going to do with the bishop? So I'm winning tempo of the bishop. What are they going to do? How are they going to move it? I'm thinking if they move here, I can just take. Here, white wanting to, you know, keep their bishop in play. They possibly thought, okay, need to move the bishop. And then they saw, oh, I've trapped black's queen. They've trapped my queen. But you can see it's a blunder. They haven't trapped my queen. Can you see why? That's right. Remember, that bishop, very, very powerful with the pressure on the f2 pawn. And after short castles, it's pinned, which means there is no defender of that bishop. Basically, white has weakened the dark squares around their king, capture, and pretty much it's all over. I wonder if white tried to drag and capture and realized that they couldn't, realizing just how bad the position was. Here they decide to, you know, feel like they have to do something, so they capture, but here the only thing that saves white from a very, very quick checkmate is in fact to trade their queen for the knight. So without the knight, I don't have an immediate mate because after capture, this will be mate. What are they going to do? White decides to try, you know, a desperate sort of move. Bishop captures with check. Here I thought about a while because, you know, potentially, you know, white keeps having checks. So I decide to just move my king forward one step. I'm not going to take the bishop. This is actually probably the better move because, you know, white does have another check there, but actually it doesn't matter what they do. They can't keep up the checks and they can't maneuver their pieces to prevent that checkmate. After this move, white realized it was all over.
Emotional damage.
Emotional damage. Good game. GG. I'm not sure there are any really major big takeaways from this game other than always being on the lookout for tactics in the opening and also in the early middle game. Things like pins, things like forks, things like certain maneuvers like the fishing pole attack. If you put your pieces into places where you've got tactical resources and play to a plan, it often becomes successful even if Stockfish thinks that the moves aren't necessarily the most accurate. I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.